no.
No, that was talk for 5 hours. All right, so some No Time to Die. I just can't get the words out of my mouth. So some No Time to Die news came out. So that's Bond 25. That they're not going to go to streaming ever on it. They're going to release it in theaters, however long that takes. Who knows? Because they're pushing everything back. But they're just going to put it in theaters. I got some thoughts on the title here in a second, but just in general, just going around the room here. I wanted to get your good thoughts on the Craig era. For me, I'm a huge Bond fan. I'm a massive Bond fan. For me, the sort of end of an era of a Bond and that period where you're changing over and a new Bond's going to get announced. That's one of the sort of coolest times to be a Bond fan to me. That you get this sort of changing and you get to see who's coming in and they get to be part of that lineage. So I've been a real big fan of the Craig era, especially the first three films. All three of them, to be exact. I love all of those. I'm really excited for Bond 25. I think Craig has been an outstanding person in the role, and I love the fact that when he was first announced, it wasn't expected that he might be as good as he's been, but he really took it on. Has really run with it. I've loved his run. Willibers, how have you felt about it, and how do you feel about maybe the run as a whole, and maybe the future of the franchise, just in summation?
I love Daniel Craig as well. I think when they changed from Pierce Brosnan to Daniel Craig, I think it's the best thing that could have happened to the franchise at that moment because, well, what was the last last movie from Pierce Brosnan?
Die Another Day.
Die Another Day. Yeah. Well, that one was the one with the invisible car and stuff like that, huh?
Yeah, the
Actually,
plastic surgery.
that movie actually, that's where they lost me as a Bond fan. I actually did not like that movie. Even the song, I think it was made by Madonna.
It's Madonna.
Yeah, it didn't appeal to me. So I actually hadn't seen Casino Royale when it came out. I only seen it a few years later, right before Quantum of Solace came out, and or actually that already had come out, and I only watched Casino Royale after that. And I was blown away by it because it changed Bond. Bond died in that movie. He died for just a few seconds, but he was dead. Technically, he bled. It's not like Roger Moore who could walk through a rain of bullets and nothing touched. He died. He bled. He had a hard time. He got bruised. You could tell that Daniel Craig played the character like he was emotionally distant, but actually there was a lot of emotion inside of him. But he tried so desperately to control his emotions and tried to look like he had no heart, but actually that showed he had a big heart. It was well paced. It had a good story, and I was blown away by it. Quantum of Solace, I also liked a lot, actually.
I love it.
Because but it's a good movie, and I like that they started to weave in those from elements from Casino Royale into the next movie, and they kept on doing that right up till Spectre. And from the trailer you have seen for No Time to Die, and I know exactly where Arch is going with the title, by the way. Is you can see that they keep on doing that, and I actually enjoy that. They take a little bit more notice of continuity, which I am a big fan of, as you know. Skyfall is actually the strange movie in this first trio, because it's totally different than those first two. Those first two you can refer to as classic Bond. Skyfall is totally different. He going back to the castle or whatever, the mansion where he grew up, and have a bad guy come to him. Well, normally he goes to the lair of the bad guy. Well, now it was the other way around, and protect. It's very personal, very the dynamic between him and M is, well, I think the best I have seen in the Bond franchise, and Skyfall, and those three movies, I mean, as a trio, as a trilogy, are amazing. Then you get to Spectre, and Spectre was actually return to the classic Bond, and I was actually a little bit disappointed the first time I saw Spectre because of that return to the classic Bond. Um, Nevertheless, it's a good James Bond movie. Don't get me wrong, but it was a little bit of a step back to from where they were going with the franchise, and I absolutely hope that with No Time to Die, they go back to where they were, what they were doing with Bond, because I liked that a little bit more. Um, Nevertheless, I love the Greg era. Future of the franchise after Daniel Craig, because I understand No Time to Die is his last Bond movie. I have a favorite actor to take over the franchise, which will not sit well with a lot of people.
Who you got?
Idris Elba.
Okay.
I thought you were going to say that, yeah.
I would love him to see. I can totally see him play James Bond, and I can totally see him in a suit in a casino, doing the jokes. I can totally picture it, and I would love to see him take it over the role.
I think the problem with that is maybe not going to be what you think it is, but I think it's his age. He's 48. Yeah, I mean, by the time he even came close to starting it, he'd be in his early 50s. It's just, to me, for a franchise where you want somebody to stick around for 4 or 5 films, he's too old, man.
That I totally agree with you. But if you look at actors, another one they could go is Tom Hiddleston. Would also not be a bad choice. But I have a feeling they will go for an unknown actor.
I think maybe
or at least
Tom Hardy
an
was
actor
mentioned, or was Tom Hardy mentioned?
I heard Tom Hardy mentioned, and I have no problem with him, but I think he's also getting towards the age thing. I looked this up at some point. By the time he realistically started and got a movie out, he'd be 48 or so. And I know the guy's youthful, man, but that's where Craig's ending. Like that, he would be the oldest starting Bond. I just think you want somebody in their mid 30s or so you can potentially get 15.
You want something maybe somebody maybe in their late 20s even.
Maybe
then you can go like for 20 years, 5 movies, and or 15 years at least, and so that's why Idris Elba won't get it. But just as an actor, he would totally nail it. But yeah, I agree with Arch. The age thing, I hadn't really considered, but that's what probably will not happen. That's why it will not happen.
And if it was for one film, yeah, you can get away with one film for anybody. But it's the fact that you're looking at a long-running franchise and being there for 15 years in the role. Starting at 50 gets a little dicey.
Yeah, I mean that's why Diamonds Are Forever is the weakest of the Connery ones, because you already see he's getting too old, and he wasn't even that old at that time. But it isn't. You see those girls in their early 20s, and they have to fall for a guy that's in his late 40s. Yeah, that's not gonna happen. At least not in the scale you want it to be in James Bond. And yeah, so no.
Biz, I know you're a little different than Wellerbers and I. You're more familiar with the newer entries than the classic ones. So what's your sort of take on the Craig era? Or I don't even know where would you rate yourself as a Bond fan, or like how do you just perceive the whole thing?
I definitely like the films, but I wouldn't say I'm an uber Bond film, not by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm like, I guess I'm more of like a general, I guess, audience viewer when it comes to Bond, but I like the films, yeah. I definitely follow them. Bond has, it's big. Like you can see, like they're trying to, like for example, like with Hollywood, they're trying to copy it with, like for example, Jason Bourne. They even have the same initials, JB. They even pointed out with also like a 24, like Jack Bauer, JB again. Like, do you know that kind of trivia? Yeah. So they're trying to like emulate in that kind of sense, like a strong kind of short name, JB. But in terms of like what I've seen so far with the. I mean, I remember there was like a kind of like an outcry with Craig's casting because we have this kind of like blonde Bond because he's never really been blonde before, right?
James Blonde.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But because I'm just a like a average fan, I didn't really have a problem with that. So, but like, how did you guys feel about it? That's what I'm curious about that actually.
So my familiarity with Craig was from Tomb Raider, the second one I believe it was with Angelina Jolie. That's the only time I'd ever seen him. With castings, so I was going to mention this earlier too.
No. In terms of just his hair color, like how did you feel about that?
I honestly didn't have any sort of issue with it. He's not like a platinum blonde. I thought his hair was like dark enough. If you brought him in and he's just like this, bleach blonde sort of dude, maybe. But it didn't stand out as a big deal to me.
If they had chosen Paul Bettany, there would be a bigger outcry.
Okay.
Paul, it's funny because there's this thing that Bond's gotten progressively shorter over the years. Like both Connery and Moore were very tall, slender guys, 6'3", somewhere around there, and then they've gotten progressively shorter and stouter, and like Craig's a very muscled dude, which was not what Bond really is. Paul Bettany actually fits more in the Connery mold than Pierce or Craig do. But regardless, I think they both did a great job. So I was gonna go back to Quantum of Solace just a little bit ago and why I like it, because I know Biz, you're not a super big fan of it. Wells, you're probably gonna more agree with what I'm about to say here, but I love the fact that after Casino Royale, because Bond always switches up its style. Biz, you just sort of alluded to that a little bit. They go from a little more campy to a little more hard boiled, and I love the fact that from Casino Royale, from this kind of like operatic sort of long drama that wasn't very action heavy to a shorter film that had a lot of action, was just really visceral. I love that aspect, but I also, more importantly, love, like, I consider it the best character movie in the entire series, and I don't think anybody gives it credit for that. But some of the scenes he has with Mathis, especially like his death scene, or just how he goes and recruits him, I thought it was just like the best character work they've ever done in the entire series. Like the fact, like, how he ends with Camille in that scene where they're holding each other and he's about to like self-commit suicide with himself, and he's about to kill her. He's holding her in his arms with a gun like under her neck, like ready to kill her, because she is like scared to death of dying in this fire that she's in, which is something that was a traumatic moment for her as a child. And he's about to kill her. He's about to put her down until he suddenly realizes that maybe they can escape this. But that was like such just a powerful moment to me. I think those are littered throughout the film. I think it's a fantastic film for that reason alone. But there's all kinds of other things. I love the water plot. I love like the opera scene. There's so much good stuff in that movie. I don't know what's not to like. I'll tell you what I think it was. I think it was the title, because I think people didn't know what the heck Quantum of Solace meant. I really don't, and I think it threw people off. But for me, I kind of thought about it for a little while. To me, it means, I'm just going to say generically, just small amount of peace. Because that's really what the characters go through and get out of this. Like, Mathis has like, a moment where he kind of like accepts sort of like the journey they've been on through Casino Royale till now. Bond gives that to Camille at the end. He has that for himself where he gets over Vesper. I think that's what the title means. And, I don't know. I just loved all the character moments throughout that film. That's why I love it. Willibers, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's a little bit more of a classic Bond if you look at the. It's more like Spectre than like it is like Casino Royale or Skyfall. But yeah, it has a lot of great moments in it, and it's underappreciated, underrated by a lot of people. Of all those four Craig movies, I think I like Spectre the least, and I like Skyfall the most, and Quantum of Solace, Casino Royale are right up there, and are, to me, really great Bond movies. For me, Spectre was really the big disappointment in this franchise, and I hope they pick it up again.
Spectre to me, there's a few things that kind of got it to that, because I'm with you on that. It's not. I mean, it's not terrible or anything like that. But like,
No, I did not say. Huh?
No, I agree. I felt with that one, unlike the others, I felt like I was watching a bunch of set pieces. Like I felt like I was watching them on set do these big action pieces or something. Somehow I didn't feel like I was in a real world. I felt like I was on a set constantly or something. And then also I don't know really what the twist was with Blofeld there and having him related. That didn't mean anything to me, but I mean, okay.
No, I wasn't annoyed by that or anything, but
yeah.
But it's a bit like we had the discussion last week about Star Trek, where you get the feeling that nowadays people have to be related or something, or at least have a relationship of some sort to make movies more interesting. While in fact, a lot of times it isn't really needed if you have a better story. And what's the point of that whole desert plot line where they go, Inspector, where they go all the way into the African desert to that oasis created there. Basically nothing happens there what couldn't have happened anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know what I mean.
The thing is, I actually like Spectre. I read that quite higher than other Bond movies, like in the Craig era, like except for Casino Royale, of course, nothing tops that. But I kind of like Spectre. I thought it was a bit more like darker and grittier, and also like at times a little bit spookier too, like compared to other Bond films. I don't know, it just worked for me for some reason.
I think that's awesome, because this is what I love about Bond. There's the whole series. There's some films that people really love that others don't. Like Wellebers and I love Quantum of Solace, but that's not the general opinion. But I think that's what's cool about the series is that individuals have certain ones that work for them in certain ways, and the series bounces around different styles. I think it's great.
If you look at the movies I generally don't like are the Roger Moore ones, and some of those movies are one of the most popular movies out, James Bond movies in the franchise, generally considered. Well, I couldn't care less for them. I love the Connery ones. I love the one we got with Lazenby. Timothy Dalton is also one of my favorite Bonds. Pierce Brosnan is the same for me as Roger Moore. I really don't care for those kind of movies. I like Tomorrow Never Dies, but that's about it. Greg is actually a better era for me when you look at the Bond franchise. But a lot of people will say, "Oh no, Roger Moore is the best Bond by any means," and absolutely despise Dalton or Greg. Other people will love Brosnan. It's all discussion that can be had, and there are not really bad Bonds. They all have something which I like. But with the Roger Moore ones, you basically got the same plot line ever since. The classic Bond where you have a villain in a layer where and Bond goes out and destroys it at the end. It was a formula. The MCU gets accused of being formulaic most of the time, but there is a distinct Bond formula, and I like actually the movies I like the best are the ones that don't follow the formula.
I agree. There's a few films throughout the series, if you haven't gone back and watched them, Biz, that are almost the same film. Like, so if you look at maybe You Only Live Twice and The Spy Who Loved Me, are both very, 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 very similar, where you're stopping this major crisis and you have to go to a villain in a ridiculous lair. Like a ridiculously Austin Powers style hollowed out volcano or undersea floaty sea base thing, like huge over the top layer, that kind of thing. And I think those are great too, but there are a few films that you catch on to distinct patterns on. I'm a big Roger Moore fan though, and that's probably because he was the most recent guy sort of when I was growing up, so I watched a lot of Moore films. I really actually love the entire middle section of him. His first film, Live and Let Die, and then his last film of A View to a Kill aren't particularly my favorites, but basically everything in between that, his other five, I really love. I love Octopussy. I love The Man with the Golden Gun. I think that one gets underrated and overlooked a lot. And then of course The Spy Who Loved Me, and my personal favorite is For Your Eyes Only. I love that one from Moore. That was his 5th film, I believe. But anyway.
Yeah, For Your Eyes Only, but that's also not so much a typical formula Bond movie. It's a little bit different, and that's why I like it more than the rest. By the way, if you look at our conversation from last week and Star Trek, there's an episode in Deep Space Nine, Our Man Bashir, and that plays a little bit off the Bond style, the Bond formula. And if you are interested in that, Our Man Bashir, it's in Deep Space Nine, I think season 5. I recommend it for people who would like to watch a James Bond style episode of Star Trek, and it's actually very funny and great. And it's also playing with that typical Bond formula, and it plays it a little bit, and I enjoy that episode always a lot. So it's a recommendation from your Grandmaster.
Themed episodes are always fun. I'll definitely check it out at one point.
If you want another Star Trek thing, we haven't gotten into the show yet, but Black Mirror. If you've never watched Black Mirror, there's an episode at the start of season 3, which is very Star Trek Central.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's at the beginning of.
Yeah, you can check it out. So finishing up on Bond a little bit, though, I wanted to get just in general, like everybody's favorite Bond and maybe Bond movie at this point. Biz, you're newer to the franchise. Do you have more of an affinity for Craig or Brosnan, or do you have any sort of sensibility for the others that came before that?
Definitely Craig.
Craig's your favorite? Okay. Do you have a favorite film?
Yeah, Casino Royale.
Casino Royale. Okay, Casino Royale was amazing, especially after Die Another Day. Royale, they really nailed. I love the opening of that too. The opening Casino Royale. Welbers, where are you at? I think I know where you're at, but.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the weirdo again. I like George Lazenby, and I won't say it's my favorite Bond movie, but it's one of my favorites. It's On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And I just love that movie from start to finish, and I think George Lazenby doesn't get enough credit for what he pulled off, because he had some big shoes to fill. And to me, and I'm a person who wasn't, I was alive at the time, but not consciously of Bond, because I think I was 2 years old or something when that movie came out. I look back at that movie and I don't see anything wrong with George Lazenby as James Bond. And
he's great.
I think he was great, and he got too much heat and was forced out of the role. Talk about cancel culture before we had the internet on such a big scale. It still existed, but he was forced out of the role, and I think that's a bloody shame. He should have gotten a chance to grow in that role, but I don't know the details of what happened back then. But I want to advocate for Lazenby as James Bond and his Bond movie On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which I highly recommend to anybody starting as a Bond fan.
He did great. Biz, what'd you have?
Oh no, I was just going to ask, but he already answered the question. What happened? What was the situation? That's all.
I think at the time they didn't think that Lazenby was gonna last in the role. He wasn't popular enough, and also they had the chance. So Sean Connery had just left the role in the previous movie of Live and Let Die. I'm sorry, not Live and Let Die.
You only live twice.
Yeah, You Only Live Twice. But there was some talks. I don't know exactly what they were regarding Connery and his availability to come back to the role. And Connery actually came back. So he left, Lazenby came in, and then Connery came back in Diamonds Are Forever. And I think they just realized they had the opportunity to get him back, and they went back to Connery because they thought that was going to work. And then they wound up going with Roger Moore, who was an established name. He'd done The Saint.
Ivanhoe.
Yeah. So Roger Moore was already known at the time. They thought Saint's a very similar sort of. It's not exactly similar, but it's a spy film, and he'd sort of had. If you look back at all these guys before they came in, they kind of had trial runs in different shows or movies or something like that, where they kind of got an audition film or something in before that. But a little known fact, actually, Roger Moore was older than Connery even at the time he got hired. He doesn't look it. If you go back and watch Diamonds Are Forever, and then watch the next film, Live and Let Die, which is Moore's first film. Moore looks significantly younger, but he's not. He's actually, I think, it's 3 or 4 years older, which is kind of weird. But going back to Welber's pick there, on Her Majesty's Secret Service, I've heard this before, and if Lazenby doesn't get enough credit, but he is awesome in the role. But the thing that I heard was that if Connery had starred in that movie, it's so good that would almost unquestionably be considered the best Bond film of all time. It's kind of written off a little bit because of Lazenby. It shouldn't be, because Lazenby, like you said, is good in the role, but it is a really good film, and everybody should check that one out. My personal favorite Bond, and this is the only correct answer, by the way, is Timothy Dalton. Timothy Dalton is really, really good. I'm sorry, but he is. So his debut film was why am I blanking today? So
The Living Daylights. I help you out.
Daylight.
And he did only one after that. It was License to Kill. So you don't have to think about it anymore.
No. Living Daylights and License to Kill. There were too many titles in there with Live in it. So Living Daylights and License to Kill. Both of those are great. Both of those are fantastic. Dalton's debut was awesome. I think he was Craig before Craig was Craig. He hits like just a good gritty balance. I think if you watch a Timothy Dalton film, you'll see Daniel Craig in there. He really sort of has that sort of same sort of style, but Timothy has like a really good like acting presence. I'm absolutely convinced that if they hadn't had the 6-year gap between License to Kill and GoldenEye, and where Pierce ended up coming on, and he would have continued on. He would have had a third film. He would have done GoldenEye. He would have done Tomorrow Never. I still call it Tomorrow Never Lies. I heard that was the original title, and since it's about newspapers, I think that would have been a much more clever title, Tomorrow Never Lies. But and then he would have done The World Is Not Enough. I'm convinced he would have made those individual films better for what they were, and he would absolutely be considered the best Bond of all time. I think it's a real shame that he didn't get to continue in the series. He was incredible for me. But my favorite Bond film, I will go ahead and say, is From Russia with Love. If you haven't seen From Russia with Love, Biz, I highly recommend From Russia with Love. It's completely different than the stuff you see today. Yeah. But I think it's a fantastic Bond film. It's the second one in the entire series.
That train sequence, the train scenes, those are absolutely among the best I have seen. The suspense it's amazing.
Yeah, I would start with that one. In fact, if you haven't seen any of the older ones, Biz, and you want to see any of them, I would definitely do From Russia with Love. Well, you can throw some in here. You have to see For Your Eyes Only and The Spy Who Loved Me. So at least those three. You could probably see. You have to see Goldfinger.
Yeah, Goldfinger.
Yeah,
that's it's the most classic of all Bonds. Even though it's the second one.
Right.
I would recommend A View to a Kill.
What?
Because I really like it. I really like it. I actually like Grace Jones in that movie, and I actually like Christopher Walken in that movie. I actually like A View to a Kill. I would rather see that one than Octopussy or Moonraker or Moonraker is god awful.
No, Moonraker's great. Moonraker is great. This is why I love the Bond franchises. You get into debates like this. It's fantastic.
Yeah. But the Pierce Brosnan era, Tomorrow Never Dies. I think it's is the most relevant one of those four. Four.
Yeah, four. He did four. Yeah.
So that one I should never skip. And the correct ones you can all see.
Yeah. This what'd you have?
No, I was just gonna ask, like, why was Timothy Dalton let go?
So there's a long story with Timothy Dalton and Pierce Brosnan. They have an interesting like dynamic and how they came on. Pierce Brosnan was actually the original choice to come on when Dalton started. What happened was that he was on a show called Remington Steele, which again was his sort of trial show that I mentioned earlier. They were going after him. Remington Steele was being canceled. And on the very last day that the studio had the option to renew Remington Steele, Pierce Brosnan's popularity had surged so much on the idea that he was going to be James Bond that they renewed the show. So all of a sudden he wasn't available. And Timothy Dalton was brought on. He'd been rumored to be in the role for a long period of time. There's even speculation that he was in the running way back when Moore first stuck on the role. Dalton would have been very young at the time, but he was always kind of on the radar to come in.
Yeah.
So he came on because Pierce suddenly wasn't available anymore. And then what happened after License to Kill was that there was a big long legal dispute over who owned the rights to certain aspects of the James Bond franchise. So they didn't make a film for a long time until they got to GoldenEye. By the time they got there, Timothy Dalton, I don't know at what point in that series he'd said he wasn't coming back. I'm sure they asked him to come back, and at that point he just wanted to move on, and Pierce Brosnan was available again, so they went ahead and went back to Pierce Brosnan. So either two of those guys could have been in all 6 of those films. The Dalton Brosnan era to me is like pretty much combined. Either actor could have been in all 6 of those films. And so I look at them as kind of an interesting sort of era where it's a little unique, I guess. Mm-hmm. I lean more towards Dalton. I would have been much more of a Dalton type of guy. I thought he brought something unique to the role.
Yeah.
That was a little different than the other guys.
Well, you know what, Lazenby and Connery and Dalton and Craig, the MCU always gets, treated like they're making too many quips when they are fighting and stuff like that. Well, I feel the same way with Roger Moore and Pierce Brosnan as James Bond. They walk through a shower of bullets and they can still make jokes, kiss the girl, talk to Q on a phone that's hidden in a shoe, and save the day. It's too easy, too quippy, Yeah, that's why I am not a real big fan of those two Bonds. That doesn't mean that all movies are bad, and when I say Moonraker's god awful, I mean that in compared to other Bond movies. But there's not a real bad Bond movie out there. That's what I will say. That's why my feelings about Brosnan and Moore are a bit more harsh, because they are too smooth, if you know what I mean. I mean, Bond should be smooth, but not that smooth. And that's why I like Craig. Nothing with Craig is very smooth, if you know what I mean.
It's a little more hard-boiled. That's why I think you like Dalton. So, License to Kill, For Your Eyes Only, The Spy Who Loved Me, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, and GoldenEye.
Casino Royale.
Go watch those. However many I just listed, 7 films or something like that. Go watch those.
Yeah, you can also watch them all.
You can't watch them all, but at least those. At least those.
And now you have the title for the new movie, and I know what you was gonna say, Arch.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll let you do it.
Yeah, no, I guess we can get into that real quick, and then we'll sort of wrap things up here, because I know I know it's getting late here. But so No Time to Die, and this was not my idea. I will give Max Murray credit for this one. So when No Time to Die came out, and you see the main villain he's come out for the first time, and he's got a mask on. It's a Japanese no mask, by the way, and the title is No Time to Die. And he's also apparently got water burns on his face, which if you've ever seen the original movie, Dr. No, you'll know that the main villain dies in a nuclear-heated water tank. And so we are convinced that the main villain in this one is Dr. No, and the title refers specifically to Dr. No. So we think we think that's what's going on there. I can't confirm that, but there's too much referencing No to think otherwise.
Basically, the Bond fandom is expecting Rami Malek to play Dr. No.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think they really hit it on the nose. But if they could have kept it a little bit secret, and everybody would going out on the opening weekend, the mind would be blown and everybody would be raving about this movie. If it doesn't happen now, then everybody will have a slight disappointment. So they are playing with fire here with this movie title and this rumor.
But the thing is, like, well, they did have what's his name, Blomfeld or Blomfeld?
Blofeld.
Blofeld.
Yeah, Blofeld. They had him there, so it's possible.
Oh, it's very possible. And
Yeah.
by the way, if you didn't know, since you're newer to the series, Blofeld's like an old school reference. He was around a lot in the Connery era,
Yeah.
almost all the time. In fact, yeah, all the time, around every time.
Yeah, he was the main antagonist, you say, in the early Bond era. I think even up until into the Moore era he showed up. So basically he is their go-to villain.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was the big deal about Blofeld coming back. But if you watch some of the Connery films, you'll get maybe a bit of a different perspective on him. He's often the shadowy guy.
And them they being foster brothers, basically. He's in Spectre was also a bit of a controversy among the fandom.
Right, because it never had been a thing.
No. So, yeah. But I didn't care about it because it was an interesting take for a movie. No, but the thing with Spectre was because they went back to Blofeld, it's something we have seen before, and so I didn't mind it as much as I usually do when movies tend to repeat themselves, because they had like a sort of a soft reboot when Daniel Craig came in. More so than when they replaced other actors. Bringing Blofeld in made some kind of sense. But yeah, they should be careful not to actually start repeating all the villains we have seen already in all those movies, because that would not be a good thing for this franchise. They need not do that.
I agree, but it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. The one thing I was going to mention about Inspector Gadget opening, where Inspector Gadget runs through a bunch of stuff, and then he walks into, I think it's Dr. Claw, where that's the main villain, and he walks.
Blofeld, right?
Yeah, you just see the hand sitting there, and he turns around. And the cat. That's Blofeld. That is basically Blofeld, at least through much of the Connery era. So anyway, I would go check it out. Anyway, guys, I know it's getting late, so we'll kind of wrap up here a little bit, but I just wanted to encourage everybody again to check us out on Sakaar, check us out on Nowhere. We'd actually love to have anybody on at any point. Just get on the site, let us know what you want to talk about, and we'd love to see you. But I guess until next time.
Yes.
Anything else?
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, guys.